Oh, there we go. Okay, good. Wow, great. Thank you very much. Yes. And some have the kindness of strangers thrust upon them. I don't know if the kindness of strangers, I don't know if that's a standard expression, but the first time I heard that as an expression, and I think some other people, maybe they're the same too, was in the mouth of Blanche Dubois. The first time I saw A Streetcar Named Desire, and Blanche Dubois has her famous line, "I had often depended upon the kindness of strangers." And I remember watching that and I thought, well, me too! Me too! Because, sometimes you get into trouble, the circumstances conspire against you, you're out on a limb, and then somebody steps forward and helps you, and so you end up depending on the kindness of strangers. Of course, if you see the film or the play all the way to the end, you realize that the reason that Blanche depends on the kindness of strangers so much is that she's a complete disaster. And so then I started thinking, my first response was, oh, me too! So, who depends on the kindness of strangers more, me or Blanche? Because, when you try and do anything, sometimes things go wrong. When you travel, inevitably sometimes things go wrong. And when I travel, a lot goes wrong. A simple example would be I went to an airport in the States to come back to Japan. I put my ticket down, and I put my passport down. The man looked at his computer screen and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Medlock, your plane was yesterday." And I thought, I can't believe I made that mistake. That is just ridiculous. I will never, ever make that mistake again. Next year, I went to Heathrow Airport to come back to Japan, and the man checked his screen. He said, "Mr. Medlock, your plane is tomorrow." It's not exactly the same mistake. I really must learn. I really must learn. So, but in both cases, even though I'd screwed up, somebody helped me. They managed to arrange things, and I ended up depending on the kindness of strangers as usual. But sometimes you don't screw up, and still sometimes people seem very determined to help you. I mean, just 1 month ago, a man suddenly appeared at the San Joaquin determined to help me. Hello, hello, I guide you. No, thank you. Where you go? I guide you. No, I'm fine. America? No. France? No. Australia? Canada? No. What the? England? No. It's not true, but by then I was in a groove, and no just felt good. Just felt right. So sometimes you screw up, sometimes you don't, and I don't know, there's a beacon on my head that's just saying, help me. But when I was 22, I traveled in Italy for a month, and I experienced a lot of help, and some of it was genuine help, and some of the help was very welcome, and some of it was very unexpected, and some of the help was less welcome, and I really hardly know what category to put it in. Maybe help was thrust upon me. When I arrived, it's not really out on a limb. When I arrived, I was on the boat going across Lake Garda, and there was a nice woman, Paola, we were talking to her. And I'd been studying a little bit of Italian on the train, just from a phrase book. And of course, I'd seen The Godfather 11 times, and I decided this is how you talk Italian. So she said, oh, show me your Italian. So I said, what? Hey, Englishman, open your mouth. Open your mouth. So Paola gave me lessons sort of across the lake, and by then I'm speaking Italian as she wanted me to. Thank you, Paola. But the next person to help me was in Parma. I went to Parma, city of cheese and ham and beautiful art, and also when I arrived, it was the Festival of Verdi. It's his hometown. I didn't know this, but so I went to the box office of the Verdi Festival, and in my best Paola-influenced Italian, I said, "Uno biglietto per per la festival di Verdi, per favore. And she looked at me and started to laugh. In English, I'm sorry, everything is sold out. And by the way, when you speak Italian, don't open your mouth so much. It sounds like you have a speech defect or something. Direct, you know, but it's all sold out, you know, so I just stood there chatting with her at the box office, and then the next day I went back and we chatted some more, and then she said to me, so, you know, where are you going after Parma? And I said, well, I'm going to go to Florence, to Firenze. I'm going to stay with a friend of mine who's living there at the moment. He's studying in a school. She said, oh, that's very nice. Where does he live? I thought, oh, where does he live? I don't know. Well, what is the address? I don't know. You have his telephone number? No. So you know what the school that he is studying? No. She said, how do you plan to meet him? I don't know. Do you think Firenze is a tiny village? You stand in the middle piazza and just shout, hey, who knows me? She said, I think your plan is not good. I said, it's not that the plan isn't good, there is no plan. And she said, wait a minute, I'll come into the building. So I went, I know when people tell stories like this, it's very common to say, and when I look back then, I just can't even see myself. I can't recognize myself. But in my case, I can look back and I can say, oh yeah, that's me. There I am. And I'm even now, it's just embarrassing to even confess it, you know. I mean, how did I imagine that I was going to bump into? I really don't know. Anyway, I went into, she took me into the box office, the whole of the Verdi Festival, and she shouts, you know, okay, hey ragazze, you know, listen up, and she starts talking rapidly, you know. Of course, in English, stupidi, stupido. I didn't understand everything she said. There were two things I knew. One, she's talking about me, and two, according to her, I'm not the brightest diamond in the tiara. So anyway, so everyone in this video is about a dozen people. They all started getting out books and going on the telephone, and I said, well, what's happening? And she said, they are going to find the telephone number of every single Italian school in Firenze, and they're going to phone them until they find your friend. And then they will tell him to meet you in this piazza, in this cafe, at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Look at her, she said, yes, yes. Unlike you, we Italians are very well organized. That's not the stereotype that I'm usually comfortable with. Anyway, she was right, they found my friend, they gave a message, I turned up at this cafe in this piazza, and there was this, my friend was not there, you know, but I was approached by this huge Finn who spoke to me. I mean, a person from Finland, not a prop from Jaws. And so it worked, they found him. So there I was, depending on the kindness of strangers with Claudia. And after that, I went to Assisi. I wanted to go to Assisi because I wanted to go to Mass on Sunday morning at the famous chapel, and surrounded by the Giotto frescoes. It was, you know, that was my big dream. So I got on the train to go to Assisi, and I fell into conversation, as one does in Italy, with a very, very refined, elderly Italian woman. And we're talking, and she said, well, where are you staying? In Parma? And I said, oh, well, don't worry about it, you know, I'll find somewhere. She said, no, you come and stay at my villa, it's very nice, outside of the town. She wrote her name and her address, and she gave me a piece of paper. I said, I'm sure I'll be all right. The truth is, my accommodation plan in Parma, in Assisi, I mean, was to go to the campsite. I had tried $25 left, the equivalent. Was to go to a campsite, ask for a piece of ground on which I was going to lie down, and hope it didn't rain. But compared to my accommodation plans for Florence, that's quite detailed. So I walked to the campsite and I just said, can I just, have a piece of land to lie? They said, no, we're full. So can I just lie down somewhere? No. So I went back into the town, and I thought, there was a bench, so I'm just going to lie down on a bench like a homeless guy. So I lay down on the bench, and the police came around and moved me on. So I waited around the corner, and I ran back. They didn't wait around the corner, they ran back. I tried to find another bench, and this time I lay under the bench. But they found me anyway, and they told me they were going to lock me up next time. And I thought, that might be a solution to my accommodation problem. But I don't know what time they're kicking me out, and I don't want to miss the service, So I thought, well, I've got this, I've been offered a room, by the signora, so why not? So I thought she's just outside the city, so I found it. I got a taxi, and I just gave the address to the driver. Please take me here. So he drove, and he drove, and he drove. And after about half an hour, you can see the meter going, and you're thinking, if he doesn't stop soon, I can't even pay the fare. And finally we drove right into the countryside, and it was now pitch black, and he drove up the mountainside, and then he stopped and said, we're here. And there were just two large houses, and just nothing as far as the eye couldn't see. And one house had lights on, the other house didn't, and you guess which one was my house. So I went to this house, hoping maybe she was in, ring the bell, no answer. Maybe she's having dinner or a drink with her neighbor. So I approach the other house, and this huge dog runs out on a chain. I run away, I start shouting, but the dog just going berserk. I figured, you know what? They wouldn't give me a place in the campsite. I'll just do it here. I'll just lie down, sleep on the mountainside, and walk back to Assisi in the morning. I'll do that. So I just lie down on a piece of grass. So far, it's working out. After a while, a little kind of Fiat Uno comes poodling down the mountainside. And it stops near where I'm lying down, and then goes away. And then about half an hour later, I think it's the same car, comes back, but just when there are two of them. And they slow down, and then they move away. Half an hour later, three come back. Go away, and you guessed it, and then later on, four. And each time, and then these four cars go past me several times, and they slow down, and then they move away. I guess it's just some young guys, provincial town, nothing to do on a Saturday night, maybe they're just, curious. And then after a while, suddenly these four cars come down, and then they turn off the road, and then together as a phalanx, they start just accelerating towards me. And then the door, full beam, and the cars stop, and the doors fly open, and out jump 10 very angry-looking Italian guys. And they just start running at me and shouting. And I think we'll just run, just drop the pack and run. So I move back, and there's just a sheer cliff behind me. And I think, well, how bad could it be? So I just start shouting at them, trying to speak horrendous, atrocious Italian, trying to say, I'm a lost, soy perdito, soy inglesi, I'm a lost Englishman, and lost in Italy. And I try and hold on my passport, and they rip it away from me, and they get this tight circle, and they're shouting, and I try and shout, I am an Englishman, which I'm trying to think how to render this conversation, but I suppose my terrible Italian to them must have sounded like if they were, how can I put this? If they were speaking to me in English as badly as I was speaking to them in Italian, probably sounds like this. I am English, I am a nice guy, please, no problem, I am lost, no problem, everybody nice, I'm nice, everybody nice. And then they stay very close, and then there's two of them, they seem to be the kind of the leaders. They had this huge dispute. about what to do. And I do not think they were discussing whether I open my mouth too much when I speak Italian. I think it seemed more like discussing whether to throw me off or push me off or bury me or what. And eventually they came to some decision, and they shouted something, and four guys just grabbed me, and there's just nothing you can do about it. They grabbed me and they threw me into a little car. And there were 4 Fiat Unos. And I remember that I had the most trivial thought I'd ever had in my life, which was, I can't believe it, if I'm going to be killed by the mob, why do I have to be driven to my death in a crappy Fiat Uno? Why couldn't it be like a luxury car or something grand and imposing looking? So we were all jammed in there. And I could think, this is just a communication problem. So I kept on trying to explain to them, which again would have sounded like something like, I think everybody does, and we're all friends, and we all have a good time together in Italy, Don't talk. They drove me, and I was thinking, where are they going to drive me? And eventually we stopped at a hotel. And they frog marched me inside this hotel. And they started talking to the guy at the reception. And they were trying to get a room for me. And I started trying to protest. And I have no money, I have no money. And they turned and they shouted at me, we pay! Thank you. You are very kind for paying for me to stay at this hotel that you're forcing me to stay at. And but then the manager said, we're so sorry, we're full. And then they started abusing him and saying that their English friend had come all the way from England and no room at the inn. What kind of place is this? But he's like, I'm sorry, it's full. There's nothing I can do. And then they looked at me and they said, you hungry? Take him to the restaurant and feed him. And I said, I have no money. And we pay! And the manager said, we finished. The restaurant is closed. What kind of place is this? First you got no rooms and then the restaurant is full. And they forced the manager to go into the restaurant and make the chef make me a sandwich. They sat down, all 10 of them, and watched me eat the sandwich. Things are really swinging my way now. With my usual luck, maybe I'll be back at one of their houses, you marry my daughter, who knows where this is going to go. So we went back in the cars, back in the Fiat Unos, and we drove, and they drove me down to a station. And they said there'll be a train coming through at 1 a.m. going back to Firenze. You're getting on that train. I was thinking, come on, hospitality. Get on the train. I said, can I just sleep on the train? So it's very sort of mixed kindness. They did not want me around. Get on the train. And eventually, then they waited until the train came. The train came through at 1 a.m. and I got on it, 2 hours to get back to Firenze. Got a little bit of shut-eye on the train. Slept 2 hours on the platform. I got the first morning train back from Firenze back to Assisi. Walked up the hill, and this time I made it to the chapel just in time. And of course I had no money at all by this point, so all I had was my Eurail pass and a plan to fast for the foreseeable future. But it all ended well. But as I was coming out of the chapel, I couldn't help but wonder whether back in their village they were now regaling other members of the village with some story about how much they had helped a poor lost Englishman last night. And I reflected, though I have often depended on the kindness of strangers, sometimes I have had kindness somewhat thrust upon me. Thank you for listening.